I think I should do is give you a précis of my life.
That would be amazing.
Okay, yeah.
Because that would make it a lot easier.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'll start off with when I was born, which was at the end of the Second World War. And within a very short time, we were running from the Japanese that were coming into Hong Kong, which is where I was born. So from that point, then we'll go on, and I'll just take you through the different countries. I've been in India, where I've been tiger hunting, and we were attacked by elephants, all these things, sort of thing. My father came back. He found a good job in sugar refining in India, which is the job he was doing before the war in Hong Kong. So we up sticks and went to India. And I was in school there, of course, up in the Nilgiri Hills, about 9,000 feet up. Absolutely wonderful climate, beautiful place to be. I told you it was about 9,000 feet up. And the bus we were in was an old bus that had a charcoal burner on the back of it, which made the fuel that was burnt to work the bus, a queer sort of thing altogether. But you had to stop every now and again because it got overheated. And on one occasion, the bus stopped, but it was because there was a bear lying in the middle of the road. He got out the bus eventually and thought it's been run over or something. And he tried to move it off the road. And he couldn't. He was so big. And he got the boys off the bus, and we said we will try to get it off. So we all took handfuls of the fur of this thing, and then it stood up and walked away. Oh yes, that was. We had a cow in the school, so that for fresh milk, I suppose, but it was just one cow. Anyway, it was killed one night, and we could hear the screams and shouts of this animal being attacked by a tiger. And they didn't normally come into places where a lot of people were. Tigers will go for small animals and things, but this time went for a cow. So we always got a shikari in. Shikari is the name you give actually to a person who tracks tigers. So he came to the school, and he had a great army jeep and stuff like that, and he gave us a run around the lake that is up in Kodaikanal, and he invited a couple of the boys to come with him to track this tiger down, because they become man-eaters if they're damaged, and that's what makes them dangerous. And there was a local Raja who had a beautiful house, and he had 11 boys. So he had a cricket team, which
A lot of fun.
used to go to school too, and we played cricket with him. But he used to take pot shots at anything he saw in the hills. And he shot this tiger, and it couldn't hunt. And therefore, the cow was tied up, so it was fine for it. Anyway, we went, and myself and two Indian boys, and got a goat, and they tied it to a tree in the jungle, which was where the school was, and started calling it. And he was very good at it, and the tiger was answering. But it never came any closer to the thing tied to the tree there. So we decided to go off and try to call it until he got closer to it. And we could hear him in the background. We could hear the tiger, but everything went quiet. And then there was a gunshot. We thought he'd be coming back, but he didn't come back. The two Indian boys, much older than me, they went out to look for him. I tagged along. And we finally found him. He had been in a ravine where the tiger was and was calling it. And it got pretty close to him. And suddenly he realized that he was on this little pathway, and the tiger came round the corner on the same pathway. And his gun, unfortunately, was in his left hand, and he was holding on to bushes to keep him on the path. And he brought the gun up and shot the tiger point blank. And of course, the recoil knocked him off the path, and he went down into the ravine, and the tiger went down into the ravine, and he had a broken leg as a result of it. The tiger, fortunately, was dead. Anyway, we found him, and it was quite funny because when we went back to the school, we had the tiger on a pole, and we got somebody else that had come along later on, and we put the shikari on a pole as well. So he was hanging. Yes, well, my father decided to take me to the south of India, where he wanted to see a refinery that was doing sugar. We set off in a car that my father had ordered from America. It was an Oldsmobile, and when we were in a rough sort of part of India there were elephants. They were wild. There were a lot of my father used to use elephants instead of a tractor for collecting the sugar cane. The elephants would go in and get their trunks around it there, and they'd cut the sugar cane. Anyway, we set off, and these elephants, which were wild, were kind of ruled, or the main elephant had only one tusk, and it was a rogue elephant. They can be pretty nasty if they take a dislike to you. And this one objected to the car, and it was a very rough road, of course. It was just clay. But there were banyan trees all around. The main tree really in the jungle there was banyan, and that's the ones that have the roots growing from the branches, you know. Yes. But you can find a way through them. My father says, we're not going to get close to these elephants because it's pouring the ground already, But he says, I really want to get further south before dark. And he decided, we'll take a trek through the banyan trees. and see if we can get back on the road on the other side of these elephants. There was one rogue elephant, and there was about 4 probably female elephants. So we started off, and the elephant decided it would charge. So my father did very well to keep it going through the various roots of these banyan trees and so on. And it just caught up with us when we were getting out of the road and back onto the proper road. And it hit the car with the one trunk that, with the one tusk that it had. And it absolutely rocked the car. And the next thing I know is that the elephant had pulled the door off the car. It had got the thing right in. And the next thing we knew, that we had managed to get up onto the road. And the last I saw of the elephant, it had a trunk, it had the door on its tusk.
And you were
doing its best to try to get it off. And then it disappeared into the trees, and thank goodness.